This is your host Swapnil Bhartiya and welcome to another episode of TFR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Shawn Michels, VP of Product Management at Akamai. Shawn, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
There's a lot to talk about today, especially around Akamai's acquisition of Linode. Since this is the first time you're here on the show, tell us a bit about the company.
Akamai definitely has done a lot of things in its past. Historically, Akamai got its start as a content distribution network. The goal and the kind of the strategy at the time when Akamai was initially founded was helping our customers kind of fix the worldwide wait. At the time, internet was very laggy. Response times were extremely slow. This is back in 2000, and you weren't always sure that you were going to get kind of an optimal web experience or even kind of a video experience as you were accessing the internet. And so Akamai kind of invented itself as a content distribution network with this idea of being able to increase the performance of web applications online, to be able to make the internet work faster, to make it more reliable, to make it more secure. So our history is working with major web companies and even major media companies to enable distribution of content at global scale all over the world. So kind of our history. One of the things that you can think of though as applications started getting a little more sophisticated and as companies started needing a little more, security became a need. And so probably about 10 years or so ago, Akamai started getting into the web security space. So figuring out how do we use the infrastructure that we've deployed at the edge, how do we use our massive network to do things like provide web access firewall protection, and even do things like mitigate very large DDoS attacks. So kind of this notion of enabling customers to deliver modern applications and secure modern applications up until the acquisition of Linode have really been the two core pillars of Akamai.
You mentioned security, and that's a very important topic in today's world. Akamai has been around for a very long time, so you have seen the evolution of security in the cloud native world. It's no longer an afterthought. It's not someone else's problem. With this whole shift left movement, it's becoming a priority now. So if I ask you, what kind of trends have you seen in this space?
Yeah, so we've seen a significant uptake in security. So I think the trend is more different types of attacks, more different types of threat vectors than you've seen in the past. So early when we started getting into the security space, it really was about DDoS protection. Many of our customer sites getting hit by applications. I don't know if you remember an application called, I think it was low orbit ion cannon, which basically it made it very easy for anyone out there to kind of initiate or launch a DDoS attack against a customer or a service. And so that was kind of the initial threat vector. But now what we're seeing is that the security kind of threats are getting more sophisticated over time. We're seeing more credential stuffing. We're seeing more ways of going in and doing phishing attacks. We're seeing much more kind of sophisticated alerts. So one of the things that we've seen is, with our recent acquisition of Guardicore, needing to get into micro-segmentation in order to be able to prevent ransomware type attacks. So really, candidly, since COVID, what we've seen is that the pace of threats against our customer service is really accelerated over time.
Now let's talk about Linode. You folks do a lot of things. So where does Linode fit into your broader long-term strategy? Why did you acquire Linode?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And, when we started the earlier, we were talking about how Akamai had its background in really helping customers deliver applications across the globe. We have the conversation about how we then made the journey to securing those applications. But one of the things that we realized is that Akamai didn't really have a method in order for customers to build applications on top of our platform. And we started asking ourselves, what could happen or what could we enable if we stopped simply using those servers to build our own applications and said, dear customer, dear partners, dear developer community, why don't we grant you access, or why don't we democratize that platform and create a extremely powerful kind of compute platform to start building next generation services and applications? And when we started, we really kind of, based off of our CDN heritage, started in the serverless space. So how could we use our edge network to handle kind of lightweight functions as a service product? lightweight functions as a service type compute that really were in line with our delivery workflow. So an event-based trigger. So a customer requests a piece of content. I need to manipulate some data. Maybe I want to manipulate the website, but it's kind of what I'd call in-band type of compute. And while our customers really liked that type of solution, what we quickly realized is that there's still large parts of the application that need to be built on traditional compute and hyperscalers. So the functions as a service is great for offloading an application or augmenting an application, but the core of an application was still being built on solutions like AWS. And over time, our customer base actually started pulling us into providing those type of traditional compute solutions, so like VM type applications. One example is actually, and this is in the public now, was Apple. So Apple came to Akamai and wanted to build a private relay solution. It's a way of basically being able to protect browsers within this, or excuse me, users within the Safari browser as they navigate sites, being able to protect their identity and preventing applications from tracking them. Apple had a need for a very high distributed kind of VM type platform, and Akamai built them essentially a custom solution in order to run their private relay application. And that was an interesting signal to us, to the market, that there was an appetite for a company like Akamai to provide a compute solution that competes with what the hyperscalers were providing. And so we wanted to figure out how could we accelerate our timeline to market. And our thesis at the time was, as we brought this product to market, we wanted it to be simple. We wanted it to be easy to use. We wanted to have an amazing developer experience. And we wanted it to be really focused. So we wanted to do compute, so VMs, containers, bare metal. We wanted to obviously have storage, like block storage, object storage, and things of that nature. And we needed advanced networking, but what we didn't want to do was compete with the hyperscalers like an AWS on every piece of functionality that they provide. And so when we started looking at our needs and the type of product that we wanted to bring to the market, and then what was available, we really kind of got attracted to Linode in terms of where they fit in the space in the alternative cloud market and the alternative cloud providers. And so what really attracted us to Linode were candidly three things. It was the product. The product that they have today aligns very well with our where we wanted to take the solution in terms of core compute capabilities built with an amazing developer experience and backed by outstanding customer support. So there's a great kind of product market fit there. The people at Linode, Linode has kind of built a great team. They foster a great culture, and the culture of the team at Linode really aligns well with the culture at Akamai. And finally is the vision. So earlier when I was speaking, we talked about how Akamai had this idea and this notion of wanting to democratize compute and democratize our network to be able to enable developers to build on top of our platform. And if you take a look at Linode's vision, it was to accelerate innovation by making compute solutions accessible, easy to use, and affordable. And that core thesis really aligned to the thesis of where we were trying to take our product line. So when you're looking from a pure product market fit and you start looking at the products that they provide, the people and the culture that they developed and their ultimate vision and how it aligned to our vision, it really made Linode the perfect fit to help us accelerate our product portfolio and our product initiatives.
We live in a cloud-first or cloud-centric world. It's also a very crowded space with hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, GCP, and many alternative cloud providers. So what place do you see is there for Linode in this world?
Yeah, so I think that there are two places that they fit really well. So one is the traditionally being able to target the small developer, the developer and the SMB business space. So one of the things that we've heard consistently is even if you have the technical chops to be able to work with a hyperscaler, a lot of the customers, even Akamai's enterprise customers, and it's more applicable to kind of SMBs and developers, just don't feel serviced by the type of service that you can get from hyperscalers. We had a customer say that I'm spending $1 million a month with a hyperscaler and I can't even get an account representative. So it's kind of just being able to kind of fit into that need and to be able to provide solutions that kind of like allow that next generation of software as a service platform, or that next generation type of application that's just getting its start to be built. So I think that's one way that they can continue to kind of target at the hyperscalers. The other interesting piece is we fundamentally believe, and we're fundamentally making the bet, that the type of focused compute solution that a company like Linode provides, with the scale that somebody like an Akamai can bring, creates a new solution that is really kind of very well suited for what I'd call the next evolution in enterprise compute utilization. So to tell you a little bit more, based off of the conversations that we've had with our customers, we really identified a class of customers who have already made the migration to the cloud and are looking to do something next. So one of the stories that we heard from one of our enterprise customers was, when I needed to move from on-prem to the cloud, I needed all of the bells and whistles that a hyperscaler provided. I needed a bunch of different functionality. It helped me get up to speed. It helped me make that transition more quickly. But now that I've been on the hyperscaler for 2 to 3 years, and I'm looking to start diversify my cloud spend, one, in order to kind of keep my hyperscaler and my cloud provider honest, and two, just to have some level of backup and redundancy, all of the integration work that they had done with the bells and whistles now really serves as tech debt and an anchor. It's kind of an anchor that prevents them from doing things like easily adopting kind of a multi-cloud architecture. And what we heard from our customer base was, dear Akamai, if you could provide this like focused kind of compute solution that is extensible, that will plug into a Rancher, that will easily plug into an Ansible, and that doesn't make me learn a proprietary kind of set of solutions to be able to access the compute. Like if my developers can just understand Terraform and Linux, then I can plug that very easily into my next generation architecture. And so the fundamental bet that we're making is that as more companies evolve and as more companies move from on-prem to the cloud and their cloud experience gets more mature, what we expect is actually more and more customers in the enterprise space looking for that very similar type of focused compute, storage, and networking solution.
What's kind of unique with Linode is that, and I've talked to a lot of their customers, is the fact that they serve a very diverse user base. They serve individual developers, innovators who are trying to start their companies, SMEs, to very large organizations. We're also seeing a lot of Web3 companies relying on Linode for their infrastructure and services. In a nutshell, there is a growing demand for Linode and in general cloud. How does this acquisition improve the positioning of both Linode and Akamai in this changing world, which is moving more and more towards cloud?
Yeah, so I think the one thing that we're really positioned to do is, and I think the way that we're positioned to how we come together is, if you think about the way that Linode positions itself today, it really is a place where a lot of initial developers and SMBs kind of get their start because of the ease of use, how easy it is to get onto the platform. But in our discussions with Linode, one of the things that came to our attention is that eventually there are times when the developer or the business simply starts to exceed the scale of Linode. Like it eventually gets so big that it has to start making the transition. Really what I think the combination of Akamai and Linode does at a very, very high level is it gives the developer a place to start. So we want to make sure then we've talked about it pretty publicly that we're going to maintain Linode's existing pricing. We're not going to come in and change any of the SKUs or any of the models. We're not going to change the support. We really want to focus on that, getting that developer there. But what we also want to make sure is that when that developer grows and that developer hits a home run and has created the next generation SaaS platform that becomes the next Fortune 500 company, that they've already got the global enterprise scale that they need, and that it continues to be wrapped in the developer experience and the support that they're accustomed in using. So for us, it's really about two things, the combination of Linode and Akamai. It is one, being able to support the customer across their technology continuum. So being able to say, do you need a traditional Linode support or a Linode compute instance, or do you need to offset that with functions as a service at Akamai's edge? And kind of being able to support them as their application goes, but also be able to support them on that business journey. So being able to start as, I've got a prototype, I've got a really interesting idea. Okay, that idea is now vetted. I want to instantly take it to global scale and instantly kind of scale out. And we want to be able to support them on that business journey as well.
The way I look at this acquisition is that you are making Linode scalable so that customers can stay with Linode as they scale and move forward in their own journey. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. We want to have a very comprehensive set of tools that meets the developer where they are on the journey. Are you really advanced on your journey and you need the global scale of Akamai immediately with all the power of all of our edge services? Fantastic, I have a solution for you. Are you building your first prototype and you need something that's quite cost effective relative to the hyperscalers because you're not sure if it's a great idea yet, but you just want to kind of kick the tires on it? Fantastic, I have a solution for you. We really want to even kind of get out of this notion of debating about edge compute and cloud compute and really just focus on, hey, developer, what do you need? What problem are you trying to solve? And we have a set of tools for you.
What's your long-term plan or goal for Linode? Is it going to remain an independent business unit inside Akamai, or it will be integrated into your product and services? What will happen to Linode branding?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we made the acquisition of Linode, we did it very much with the intention of making Linode, for lack of a better term, the epicenter of Akamai's compute strategy. Again, we didn't make the kind of go forward and say, hey, we want to make an acquisition of Linode and then ask ourselves what we want to do with it. What we started with was, what is the right product strategy? How do we get to the right product market fit? And then what can we do in order to who can we find that helps us best execute that strategy? And so the reason we acquired Linode is because we love their DNA and we don't want to do anything to change that DNA. So we actually, if anything, are hoping Linode alters the way that Akamai looks at compute rather than coming in and trying to alter the way that Linode looks at compute. So from that perspective, so we have created a compute division or a compute team within Akamai. Linode, again, is the epicenter of that. So the people, the services, the teams that the customers are used to interacting with today are the customers and the systems that they'll continue to interact with. The intention is to keep the Linode brand. So the Linode brand will be kept. But so the intention is to keep that core in that spirit. Now, again, we will be adding services over time. So we'll be adding new functionality, new services. But our intention is to, again, keep things very targeted. So we may add things like virtual public cloud or VPC. We may add, we will likely invest and add more database as a service type capabilities. We will definitely be adding in more locations. So today, Linode's products Linode's in about 11 locations today. Our goal is to take their core functionality and expand it to 20 plus what we call core locations, where you have the entire Linode compute stack. And then our intention is to actually add what we call a distributed compute layer, where we have Kubernetes and VMs running in hundreds of locations around the globe on Akamai's backbone. So really what we're hoping for customers and what we're really trying to set up is kind of more. So more functionality, more locations, but also more of the same. We really want to make sure that we continue to keep in the essence of Linode as we move forward.
I fully understand that, but sometimes integrated, services offer a much better experience. So do you have any plans for integrating Linode offerings with your offerings to kind of offer a much better experience to both Linode and Akamai customers without disrupting Linode customers too much?
Yeah, so actually for the time being right now, we're actually keeping them as kind of separate entities. So obviously we will do things that enable Akamai customers to log into the Linode system. So you can imagine some single sign-on stuff and work like that. But the current kind of plan that we're working to is to keep Cloud Manager as its own type of an application and to keep and the way that we look at it is we keep kind of Linode as the way that customers who need compute, that is their gateway into Akamai is through Linode, not vice versa. So the Linode portal is going to stay up, the Linode Cloud Manager, the developer tools are all staying the same. If anything, I think what you'll start seeing more over time is Akamai creating more lightweight versions of some of its applications to be able to offer to the Linode customer base. For example, you could imagine a lightweight CDN product that is available to Linode developers, or you can imagine like a lightweight version of our web access firewall product. Those are things that we want to really be careful about how we integrate, and we'll be integrating them kind of slowly over time. But I think you'll probably see more of that rather than the integration of kind of Linode's capabilities into Akamai's existing kind of control center portals and things of that nature.
I cover open source a lot, and Linode leverages a lot of open source technologies. What is Akamai's approach to open source?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Akamai is actually heavily invested in the open source community. In fact, when you look in the media space, we have people who participate in open source standards like the Dash Industry Forum. Open source is at the heart of a lot of what we do. We just tend not to be as vocal about it. So we kind of tend to be the company behind the scenes who's got developers contributing to more open source specs that I can actually kind of even keep track of. And so I don't necessarily expect Akamai's commitment or Linode's commitment to the open source community to change. I know that they have been quite philanthropic in the way that they've kind of invested in the open source community in the past. I expect to see and continue some of that moving forward. So it's kind of one of those areas where we probably at Akamai don't give ourselves enough credit for how much we actually contribute to open source today. So I don't see a lot of that fundamentally changing.
Shawn, thank you so much for joining me today and discuss this acquisition. You shared some great insights about security, scalability, and of course, cloud in general. I loved the discussion and I would love to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity today.